In the turbulent political landscape of 14th century Anatolia, power was usually measured by the strength of armies and the size of conquered lands. Rival Turkish principalities competed for dominance, alliances shifted quickly, and rebellion often ended in destruction. Yet during one of the most critical confrontations of the era, the Ottoman ruler chose a different path. Instead of annexing the lands of Karaman and eliminating his rival, Sultan Murad I chose forgiveness, reshaping the political balance of Anatolia through calculated mercy. At the center of this dramatic episode stood Murad I, a determined and ambitious Ottoman ruler who had already expanded his authority into the Balkans, while strengthening his hold over northwestern Anatolia. Opposing him was Alaeddin Ali Bey, leader of the powerful Karamanid Principality, one of the strongest Turkish states resisting Ottoman expansion in central Anatolia. Tensions between the Ottomans and Karaman had been building for years. As the Ottoman state grew stronger, absorbing smaller territories and extending influence across both Asia Minor and southeastern Europe, the Karamanids saw their own position threatened. Alaeddin Ali Bey, determined to preserve his independence and prestige, opposed Ottoman expansion and sought opportunities to challenge Murad's authority. Political rivalry soon escalated into open conflict, as Ottoman forces moved decisively against Karaman strongholds. The Ottoman army, disciplined and battle-hardened, advanced with efficiency. Karaman's resistance weakened under pressure, and Alaeddin found himself facing defeat. In the political traditions of the era, such defiance could easily have resulted in annexation, imprisonment, or execution. The destruction of rival beyliks was not uncommon, and many expected Murad to absorb Karaman entirely into the expanding Ottoman state. Instead, Sultan Murad paused at a decisive moment. He understood that conquering territory was only one part of empire building. Maintaining long-term stability required political calculation. The complete annexation of Karaman might have delivered short-term gains, but it also risked alarming other Anatolian rulers. Fear could unite them against Ottoman authority, creating broader resistance. Murad recognized that his empire was still consolidating power, and that unity among Turkish states, even under Ottoman supremacy, was strategically valuable. In a move that surprised many observers, Murad chose to forgive Alaeddin. Rather than dissolving the Karamanid principality, he restored Alaeddin Ali Bey to his throne. This restoration, however, came with a clear condition: political loyalty. Alaeddin was required to recognize Murad as his overlord and accept Ottoman supremacy. The agreement fundamentally altered the political relationship between the two states. Alaeddin's acknowledgement of Murad's superior authority transformed a former rival into a subordinate ally. Karaman retained its internal administration, but its independence was now limited by its obligation to the Ottoman Sultan. Through this arrangement, Murad extended Ottoman influence deep into central Anatolia without the costs of direct occupation. This act of mercy was not a sign of weakness. It was a deliberate strategy. By allowing Alaeddin to remain in power, Murad demonstrated confidence in his authority. He showed that loyalty to the Ottoman throne could secure survival, while open defiance would only bring temporary suffering followed by submission. The message to other Anatolian rulers was clear: resistance might be forgiven, but supremacy would not be denied. The political impact of this decision was significant. Peace in central Anatolia allowed Murad to concentrate his military resources elsewhere, particularly in the Balkans, where Ottoman expansion continued. At a time when European powers were beginning to recognize the growing strength of the Ottoman state, internal stability was essential. Diverting forces into prolonged Anatolian campaigns would have weakened Murad's broader ambitions. Instead, through diplomacy backed by force, he secured his eastern flank. The arrangement also strengthened Murad's image as the leading Muslim ruler in the region. By compelling Alaeddin to accept overlordship, Murad reinforced the perception that Ottoman authority stood above other Turkish principalities. The symbolism mattered as much as the territory. Political supremacy was demonstrated not only through conquest, but through recognition. When Alaeddin accepted Murad's dominance, it sent a powerful signal to allies and rivals alike. In the wider context of Ottoman statecraft, this episode illustrates the flexibility that characterized early Ottoman leadership. The empire did not expand solely through relentless annexation. It relied on a mixture of military strength, strategic marriages, alliances, and conditional forgiveness. Rulers who submitted were often incorporated into the Ottoman system rather than eliminated. This approach reduced resistance and preserved administrative continuity in newly influenced regions. For Alaeddin Ali Bey, accepting Murad's supremacy was a pragmatic decision. It ensured his survival and preserved Karaman's internal governance. Although political autonomy was reduced, the principality remained intact. Submission offered stability, while continued rebellion would likely have ended in total loss. For Murad, the benefits were long-term. He avoided overextension, minimized internal unrest, and established a precedent of Ottoman overlordship over Anatolian rivals. The empire's authority grew not only through territorial expansion, but through acknowledgement and loyalty. Historians often view this episode as a defining example of Ottoman pragmatism. It demonstrates how leadership choices can shape the course of history. A single decision, to forgive rather than destroy, contributed to the consolidation of power in Anatolia and strengthened the empire's position during a critical phase of expansion. In an age when victory frequently ended in devastation, Sultan Murad's calculated mercy stood apart. By restoring Alaeddin to power under conditions of loyalty, he transformed confrontation into control and rivalry into subordination. The Ottoman Empire continued its rise, not merely through conquest, but through the careful balancing of authority, diplomacy, and strategic forgiveness. The story of Murad and Alaeddin reveals that empire building is not only about seizing land, it is about commanding allegiance. Through forgiveness, tied to political loyalty, Murad secured both, and in doing so, reinforced the foundations of a state that would endure for centuries.